And joining me now to make sense of these developments is Lieutenant General D.P. Pandey, former Director General of India's Territorial Army and Kashmir Corps Commander. Also with me is Ambassador Michael Herzog, former Israeli Ambassador to the United States. Ambassador Herzog, welcome. Let me begin by asking you, is this war going as per plan, or is Iran fighting back better than expected?
No, it is going as planned. I think there's overwhelming force, a combined American and Israeli force that overwhelms the Iranians. And the first goal is to destroy their strategic capabilities, the nuclear capabilities, the ballistic missile capabilities, the Iranian Navy, their air defense. That is going according to the plan. I can tell you, sitting in Tel Aviv, their ability to retaliate with missiles has gone down by the day because both our air forces are taking out their launchers and their missiles and their production sites. So in terms of destroying their strategic capabilities, I think this is going as planned. But the other set of goals that has to do with establishing the conditions for a future regime change, that's more amorphous. And I think it's premature to tell.
But this would indicate, General Pandey, that this war could go on endlessly, and the manner in which Iran continues to use its drones and missiles to target Gulf countries and assets in Gulf countries. There's fear, there's apprehension, global economy is in tailspin. So for Israel and the US fight, it's the world that's paying a very heavy cost already.
First of all, the biggest cost is on Iran because every day that goes by dismantles their capabilities. They have tried to show that this is a regional war by striking numerous Arab countries, civilian targets, energy infrastructure, and so on. I think they made a mistake because they alienated all of those actors and turned them against them. There is, of course, a cost in terms of oil prices. The fact that the Strait of Hormuz are effectively closed, but I believe that the US is trying to come up with several answers. One of them is to offer insurance for shipping companies. The other one is to say that the US Navy may accompany ships in the straits. The third is to destroy the Iranian Navy, even though that's insufficient. And the fourth is to generate more energy into the international markets, including, I understand, allowing Indian refineries to buy, for once, Russian oil. So, but all of these will take time. In the meantime, we've seen oil prices. But I think if you look at the overall balance, every day that goes by weakens Iran. But we do have to think about the day after and what would be the exit strategy. And there's one person who will ultimately decide, that's President Trump.
Okay, stay with me for a moment, Ambassador. Let me bring in General Pandey into this conversation. General Pandey, is that also your reading, or is Iran doing better than what was initially anticipated, General Pandey? And if Iran can stay on in this battle longer, the longer Iran can stay, use those missiles to target either Israel or American interests or Gulf countries, it just would indicate that the world is a very dangerous place. Two, Iran is able to stand up to perhaps the most powerful forces in the world.
So, Gaurav, thank you for having me over for your show. Firstly, let's be clear that when political people come to the forum to talk and onto the media, they will not share the entire plan, right? I will agree with what Trump is saying, because we can give a different spin for conversation. But the bottom line is, let's say there are three major war aims, and let's look at backwards in the reverse order. The third most, very, very important was taking out the ballistic missile system and the capacity to hit by Iran, to hit Saudis, Gulf countries, and of course, I will not talk of American bases because American bases are within those in these areas. So they may not be able to take out 100%, But if they are able to degrade to a great extent, I think that's a great achievement. Even and very clear in last about 10 days, we have seen that the number of assaults and waves which are going from the Iranian side has started reducing, while the air defense capacities have also reduced on the other side. But the entire Iran is under domination of the American forces in terms of air operation, carrying out strike without any challenge. The second, very, very important, was taking out the nuclear capability of existing, non-existing. But I believe totally, because having seen the conversation coming out from Iran and also from other people, it was Iran had the capacity in a couple of more months to be able to actually enrich uranium. Weaponizing may have taken a little bit more time, maybe, but
Okay.
definitely they were quite on this thing. So you wait for another year or 2 years to do this. The pain point would be same for the region and for the world. So maybe Trump and Israel has taken a call to carry out this now, which is much more faster and better. The third is about regime change. What is regime change? Uh, Killing or taking out top 10 leaders, including supreme leader, is not regime change, right?
Hmm.
And I think let's grant Israel with the kind of intelligence they have had and
Okay.
sensibility and the strategic community of Americans to know what the meaning of regime change. As long regime is not able to operate with the impunity it did and giving the psychological or strategic orientation and direction, I think it's okay. But yet, the last point I'll just say about Hormuz, and this was my view from the start, that as the
Yes.
time will fly, you will find that Hormuz will start flowing oil. The only challenge about insurance. There has been instances before as well. They can be moved. The tankers can start moving once Iranian navy goes out. But to say 100% security and safety for the tankers going around, I think that'll be quite silly, because Houthis and all have been doing all the strike. But I
Yes.
must give one credit to the Israelis or the Americans, that the third, that the triple H we were thinking, which were going to go berserk, Hamas has been subdued to great extent.
Okay.
Hezbollah's leadership has been taken out 3 times over. The capacity to hit with the rockets is diminishing by the day, with Lebanon actually taking control. And Houthis, which were my actually most
Big
important
concern
worry,
in Red Sea.
has
Yes.
been, yeah, they have been bought off. I think somewhere this radical element has been bought off by the Americans or by somebody, right? That they have just not shown hand for the support of Iran. So look at the three H's out. But yet to say that a terror strike, we may do anything to Pakistan, but a terror strike from the Pakistan just cannot be closed. So similarly, a surviving element of Iran will
Okay.
always remain to persist to carry out some activity, but credible military force application may
That's
not
a
happen.
good point that you make. And let me bring in Ambassador Herzog back into this conversation. Ambassador, uh, Iran's regime change, has Israel wargamed it effectively? Because we were told Mossad is very well entrenched on ground. The moment Ayatollah is decapitated or assassinated, as Iran puts it, thousands and thousands of people will take to the streets, not just in Tehran, but across the country. That hasn't happened. Did Israel go wrong there, sir?
So first, let me clarify that regime change was never defined as a formal goal of this war, neither by the Israeli government nor by the US government. What our leadership said is that we want first and foremost to destroy their strategic capabilities that could threaten us and the region, and then create the conditions for a regime change in the future, which has to be carried out by the Iranian people. It cannot be carried out from the outside or through air raids and the likes. Now, for that to happen, I think the regime has to be significantly weakened, especially the repressive network of the regime that butchered their own people. And you have to see cracks in the regime itself, defections, disobedience, and all that. We have not seen much of that. I'm not very much impressed by talk about, armed minorities like the Kurds carrying out like a revolution. I don't think this is realistic, and I don't think they are strong enough. To me, the real game changer might occur if we see units from the regular army, different than the Revolutionary Guards, which are more ideological. If we see units from the regular army defecting and turning their guns against the regime, then we can assess that. But you know, there is a paradox here in the picture because both President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister called on the Iranian people to take to the streets, but that's unlikely to happen as long as the war goes on, as long as there's bombing.
True.
So for us to know if the Iranian people are going out to the street, the war has to stop first.
So,
So it's premature to make any
before I bring in
assessment.
the general once again, tell me this: do the Americans have the stomach for a long, drawn-out affair? And how long would an affair, how long drawn out would this affair be, given the
So,
kind of intense bombing that's costing $1 billion a day for the Americans, a couple of $1 billion a week for the Israelis? How long will this continue?
so that's an excellent question that everybody is asking. And my recommendation is to focus less on what Trump says because he has mixed messages and focus more on his considerations. So on the one hand, and this is what I hear from my conversations with people in the administration, and they are saying, you know, we have amassed tremendous forces and military capabilities in the region, so we want to maximize the achievement, and that requires some time. You can't just do it overnight. If you really want to destroy their strategic capabilities, it takes time. And every day that goes by, Iran weakens, and their capacity to retaliate is weakened. As I said, we see it in the amount of missiles they fire at us. On the other hand, there are considerations against a long war. It's very unpopular in the United States. It's a war of choice. And several Americans were already killed in action. And most importantly, the cost of oil and the impact on the international economy. And this is a year of midterm elections in the United States. Gas prices have already soared in the United States. And this calls for an early exit. So if I sum up all of these considerations, I don't expect Trump to kind of opt out in the next very few days, but I don't think he will exceed the framework that he himself outlined of a few weeks. So I would give it maybe 1-2 weeks before he opts out.
So another 2 weeks, because last time in 2025, the war lasted 12 days. It achieved limited, returns or gains. This time, it's already day 11. And General, before I come to you, I want to talk about Iran's capabilities as on date. I also want to talk about the layered air defense system for the protection of Israel. So Iran has threatened to target Israel with newer generation missiles, including hypersonic missiles, some that can travel 14 times the speed of sound. The United States and Israel have a multi-tiered grid in place for the protection of Israel from incoming Iranian missiles, rockets, and drones. So as the crow flies, let's take a look at that map. As the crow flies, the distance between Tehran and Tel Aviv is approximately 1,600 kilometers, 1,592 kilometers to be precise. Iran has several ballistic missiles, cruise missiles, even hypersonic missiles capable of hitting targets more than 2,000 kilometers away. So every bit of Israel is within the reach of Iranian missiles. The United States has multiple bases across this region, but just look at the map there. Iran, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Syria, Jordan, and then Israel. Virtually everywhere, the US has bases in between. The satellites, the drones, the reconnaissance aircraft, and the radars. They can triangulate the exact location the moment a missile is fired from Iran, or in case of satellites, they can just monitor almost constantly. The radars track the flight of the missile. The US and Israel have a command and control center that identify the incoming threat. Usually, it's a barrage of missiles, rockets, and drones. It's to saturate the air defense system. But then they're also using artificial intelligence, from what sources tell India Today, to identify the immediate threat and the threats that will fall harmlessly in open areas, or ones that will take down vital assets or vital points. The US has its Patriot missile batteries deployed, take for example at the Ain al-Assad base in Iraq. The US also has both the Patriot and the THAAD, or the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Missiles. Their batteries are there in Jordan's Muafiq Sati Air Base, for example. The same base in Jordan also has the F-15 Striking Eagle Squadron, and these F-15s are in an air defense role. Now, should the incoming threat not be taken down at various levels, either by Jordan or by Iraq or by Saudi Arabia, the US has an aircraft carrier strike group deployed in the Mediterranean Sea to take down any incoming threat, because the aircraft carrier strike group has its own anti-missile defense system. It can spot missiles from the moment they are launched and decide which missile is to be taken down. Israel has its own multi-tiered air defense system, from the Iron Dome to the David Sling to Patriot and THAAD systems, all geared to take down incoming missiles at different altitudes and at different distances. The Iron Dome, for example, is designed for point defense. It can take down even an incoming artillery barrage or short-range rockets between 30 and 70 kilometers away. The THAAD, supplied by Pentagon, that area defense system can intercept an incoming missile outside the atmosphere, actually, up to 200 kilometers. The David Sling, again, it's a middle tier Israeli missile defense shield that can intercept a cruise missile. And of course, short-range ballistic missiles up to 300 kilometers. Then you also have the Arrow system, the Arrow 3. They can target medium-range ballistic missiles, and they can go up to 2,400 kilometers, take down the threat at source. Both the US and Israel have their fighter jets in the air to take down an incoming threat should it dodge this multi-tiered system. And given the speed of a hypersonic missile, the Iranian strategy is to saturate the skies with drones, with rockets, with missiles, so that the system gets overwhelmed. And there have been instances that targets have been hit. And I want to bring in General Pandey on this. General, Israel may have the best air defense system and US may support it. Somewhere down the line, does Iran still have the capability, and especially when Iran is threatening that it will now hit with newer generation missiles with 1-ton payload and more, is the threat only increasing now?
Yeah, so, any system, any tech HR system can be always overwhelmed. It's just about design, effort, and how to get under the tech. Now, hypersonics have got the speed and the range to reach out and hit out in case. Everybody may have layered. In case all these layers work, these strikes which have been landing into Israel and to the bases would have not done so. And they have been able to achieve. But aim is, right now, Gaurav, I think it's very important that you carry out also an analysis that while there is the $1 billion expenditure for the US government, how much do they have as a backup? Because right now they have not even spent a percentage of their actual kitty into this operation. Now let's go to the Iranian side. How much expenditure is the Iranians taking in terms of damage and even firing an hypersonic? Every hypersonic missile or a ballistic missile which is fired has got a cost which has to come about. And how much empowered in terms of economic terms is Iran is. So how many can fire? When you carry out these parameter checks, and every hypersonic missile must have an equitable damage requirement to be done. So, they may fire at a establishment, let's say, an air base. It may land at an air base, has got no value. It may hit a oil depot. When you say oil depots have got storage tanks, and they may hit one storage tank. How much is the damage which is going to be out? It will not be contained. So the challenge of a hypersonic and expensive missile to travel 1,600 kilometers where it can be intercepted, the issue is that how many will actually land and what are the consequences will happen. When you carry out this expense to the result ratio, I don't think, you look at the cost, they have fired thousands of missiles, but they have only eight servicemen of US, maybe more have lost life, right? Which is not retrievable. But everything which America has spent in terms of billions of dollars has got a possibility of retrieving. So I
That's
think
a good point you make. But since you mentioned some of the systems that are being used, Iran is now deploying cluster warheads, and I want to for a moment also focus on the newer missiles that Iran is using. Iran is now deploying cluster warhead missiles in its attack on Israel. Now, that's a tactic that various defense analysts argue is designed not just to overwhelm the air defense systems of Israel, but also cause maximum damage and for a sustained period of time, because Iran has been using these warheads since the 28th of February, including various variants of the Khurram-Sheher ballistic missile, the range of nearly 2,000 kilometers. These missiles are designed to break open mid-air and release up to 80 bomblets, 80 smaller bomblets, about 20 kilograms each, and then they scatter across a wide area, sometimes cover between 15 to 20 kilometers. Instead of tracking a single incoming missile, then the air defense system is suddenly facing about dozens of falling targets at one go, and those targets remain live for a considerable period of time. It can explode even much later. So it has the potential not just to overwhelm the Iron Dome, but each bomblet carries between 7 kilograms to 10 kilograms of explosives. They can spread damage across a wider area. Some of these submunitions can travel at extremely high speed. Some of these cluster bombs, and especially the airburst version, when it explodes in the air and you have shrapnel that falls to the ground with a great velocity, it can cause massive damage on ground. And I want to bring in Ambassador Herzog into this conversation once again. Ambassador, is this the biggest threat that Israel faces right now? The newer age munition, the submunitions, the cluster bombs that Iran is using?
First, let me say that we might hear the sirens any moment. If that happens, I will have to go to the bomb shelter.
Stay safe, sir.
But in any case, let me add to your excellent summary of the air defense systems that we and the Americans have. If you look at the Iranian arsenal, as the war started, our intelligence assessed that they had around 2,000 ballistic missiles with a range to Israel, and several hundred launchers, mobile launchers and others. As of today, I understand that over 80% of them were degraded, taken out by American and Israeli air forces, and their ability to use those missiles has gone down considerably and will continue to go down. On top of that, and this is a big difference from the 12-day war which you mentioned, this time Israel and the Americans are going after their industrial bases where they produce those missiles, so they cannot reconstitute this arsenal in a very fast way after the war. Now, it's different when you talk about the Gulf states, because there the range is much closer. It's 300 to 500 kilometers, and there the Iranians have a much bigger arsenal, several thousand of them, and those countries do not have an air defense system capable as the one that we have. And they are basically reliant on the Americans. Now, you asked about
that's the question. Have the Americans left partners in the Gulf region down? And perhaps, Ambassador, that's a question that we leave for another day. And I hope you join me, because I've run out of time on this part of the show. I have to slip into a quick break here. I want to thank both my guests on the